So brand new revelations into the alleged Russia hoax, a trove of declassified documents revealing evidence that the Obama administration manufactured and politicized intelligence during Trump's 2016 election.
What if the most explosive political scandal in recent U.S. history wasn't centered on Trump, but Obama? That's exactly what former intelligence chief John Ratcliffe is now claiming, and his words could alter the nation's perception of its own democracy. In a country already fractured by political extremes, one bombshell statement has reignited a raging firestorm. Ratcliffe, who served as Director of National Intelligence under Donald Trump, alleges that the Obama administration didn't just distort intelligence, it invented it. According to him, the infamous Russia collusion narrative wasn't built on fact, but on fabricated evidence. For years, the public was led to believe that Donald Trump was compromised by Russian operatives, posing a threat to the heart of American democracy. But Ratcliffe, once the highest authority in the U.S. intelligence hierarchy, now suggests the entire storyline was manufactured for political gain. If true, this isn't just a case of misinformation. It would mean one of the largest government-led investigations in American history was based on deliberate deception. The implications are enormous. Who had something to gain from this narrative? Was this a solo act of deception or a full-blown strategy executed at the top levels of the U.S. government? We're diving deep into this explosive claim, tracing it from the White House to the intelligence agencies tasked with national security. Could these institutions have been weaponized for political warfare? By 2025, America is far from the nation it was a decade ago. Facts are no longer universally accepted. One person's truth is another's hoax. In this chaotic environment, Ratcliffe's words didn't merely make headlines, they sent shockwaves through every corner of the political spectrum. This controversy isn't just about two former presidents. It's about something far more serious, the erosion of public trust. Once regarded as impartial protectors of truth, the intelligence agencies are now under scrutiny for potential bias and manipulation. And the saddest part? Many Americans simply no longer know whom to trust. Surveys reflect plummeting confidence in federal institutions. Half the nation suspects the media of lying. The other half believes the government is. Truth, somewhere in the middle, is drowning in a sea of suspicion. This is why Ratcliffe's voice matters. Not because he's loud, but because of who he is. As the former head of all 17 U.S. intelligence agencies, his credibility carries weight few can match. Appointed by Trump in 2020, Ratcliffe entered the role during one of America's most volatile periods, vowing to confront what he saw as embedded corruption. Now free from office, he's speaking without filters, making claims that could change the narrative on one of the nation's most controversial chapters. His accusations weren't vague. Ratcliffe boldly stated, "We now know the Obama administration didn't just receive flawed intel, they molded it. They built a narrative. They manufactured information to push the Russia collusion hoax." For Ratcliffe, this isn't just about clearing Trump's name. It's about exposing what he describes as a calculated abuse of power and a deep betrayal of public trust. But the question remains, why now? Some argue he's trying to shape public perception in the wake of the 2024 election. Others suggest he's laying groundwork for potential investigations under a future GOP administration. One thing is clear, his timing is deliberate. Because what Ratcliffe is pointing to dates back to the political fault line of 2016, a year that many believe began America's deep political divide. To grasp the weight of Ratcliffe's statement, we need to revisit that volatile time when Trump's candidacy was still seen as a joke in elite political circles. During this period, chatter began to surface in intel circles about alleged Trump-Russia collusion. What began as whispers soon became headlines. Collusion dominated late-night shows and congressional hearings. Suddenly, figures like Carter Page, Paul Manafort, and Michael Flynn were front and center. Then came the Steele dossier, an unverified mix of raw intel and scandalous gossip. It painted a dark, salacious picture of Trump's ties to Russia. That dossier became a media sensation and helped trigger the FBI's Crossfire hurricane probe. Meanwhile, the Obama administration, still in office during the transition period, received briefings about Russian interference. But it wasn't just about election meddling. It was the idea that Trump's campaign might have actively welcomed the help. This led to the infamous Mueller investigation, which spanned 2 years. Though Mueller didn't find a criminal conspiracy, suspicion lingered, and Trump never escaped its shadow. But Ratcliffe now says that shadow was artificially created. He alleges that intelligence wasn't just misunderstood, it was deliberately shaped. That individuals within the Obama administration sought justification to spy on Trump's campaign, and Russia was the perfect excuse. If true, this goes beyond dirty politics. It amounts to using national security tools to target a political rival. All of it happened in the shadows, while the American people were fed a different version on their screens. So what does Ratcliffe mean by saying intel was manufactured? He's not talking about honest mistakes. He alleges a coordinated effort, twisting raw intel, leaking selectively, and ignoring evidence that might have cleared Trump. In simple terms, Ratcliffe says the agencies, especially the FBI and CIA, were under pressure to deliver damning content, even if it meant cherry-picking sources, exaggerating gossip, and hiding anything that contradicted the story. Just look at the Steele dossier. Ratcliffe didn't speak in code. He was direct. We now know the Obama administration didn't just receive flawed intel, they shaped it. They crafted a narrative. They manufacture intelligence to spark the Russia collusion hoax. For Ratcliffe, this isn't just about facts, it's about exposing what he calls a deliberate abuse of power that shattered public trust. But why bring this forward now? Some suspect Ratcliffe aims to sway the political narrative ahead of the 2024 election. Others believe he's paving the way for renewed investigations under a Republican-led administration. Either way, this revelation was no accident. Ratcliffe's claims take us back to 2016, a year many view as the start of America's deep political divide. At the height of the election chaos, whispers began circulating. The Trump campaign might be colluding with Russia. What started as rumors turned into headlines, media segments, and congressional probes. Names like Paul Manafort, Michael Flynn, and Carter Page became the focus of national scrutiny. Then came the Steele dossier, a mix of raw intel and sensational claims that fueled the FBI's Crossfire Hurricane probe. Though some elements were never verified, the dossier became central to the public narrative and intelligence briefings, even reaching President Obama. The Obama administration, still in charge during the presidential transition, received intel suggesting Russian interference aimed at aiding Trump. The implication wasn't just that Russia meddled, it was that the Trump team welcomed it. This led to the 2-year Mueller investigation. While Mueller found no evidence of a criminal conspiracy, the shadow of suspicion lingered, and according to Trump, never lifted. Now, Ratcliffe insists that shadow wasn't accidental, it was designed. He claims the intelligence community didn't simply misinterpret data, they manipulated it. That the Obama administration, or at least key figures within it, tailored intelligence to justify surveillance of the Trump campaign, with Russia as the cover story. This, Ratcliffe argues, wasn't standard politics. It was a calculated effort to undermine a rival by weaponizing national security tools. So what does it mean to say intel was manufactured? Ratcliffe alleges there was selective reporting, cherry-picked sources, and intentional omission of exculpatory evidence. Take the Steele dossier again. FBI agents reportedly had doubts about its credibility before it was used to obtain FISA warrants on Carter Page. Yet it still reached top officials and even the president. This wasn't an oversight. Ratcliffe calls it a direct channel from partisan research into the intelligence apparatus, poisoning the well before Trump even took office. But the facts are more complicated. Ratcliffe wasn't a fringe player, he was the nation's top intelligence officer. He had access to classified briefings, raw intelligence, and conversations most journalists could only speculate about. And his claim isn't some anonymous leak. It's a direct accusation with document trails he helped declassify. Still, the media seems uninterested in asking hard questions. Why? Because many of the same news organizations that reported the Russia collusion story for years, often breathlessly, would now have to retract, revisit, or revise their coverage. That's not just embarrassing, it's reputational suicide. So instead of investigating further, many outlets are turning the cameras away, reframing the narrative, shifting focus. But independent journalists, whistleblower advocates, and a few brave outlets are digging deeper. They're asking, why was the Steele dossier treated as credible when its origins were known to be political? Why did the FBI withhold key details from the FISA court? But Brennan's own notes, declassified under Ratcliffe's watch, suggest he was briefed on a plan by Hillary Clinton to tie Trump to Russia as early as July 2016. Then there's James Clapper, former director of national intelligence, who publicly dismissed the idea of spying on Trump, only to later admit under oath that surveillance had occurred. And let's not forget James Comey, the former FBI director, whose decisions around the Clinton email probe and Trump dossier remain fiercely debated to this day. All three men were deeply involved in shaping public and internal narratives, raising questions not only about what they knew, but what they chose to reveal or conceal. Even Susan Rice, Obama's national security advisor, has been linked to email communications discussing unmasking of Trump associates during transition meetings. And while former President Obama has not publicly responded to Ratcliffe's allegations, critics argue that such high-level activity couldn't have occurred without his awareness. If these claims lead to investigations, and they might, don't be surprised if subpoenas start landing at the doors of some very familiar names. Because if what Ratcliffe says is true, the fingerprints don't stop at the staff level. They reach to the top. History isn't just shaped by events. It's shaped by who tells the story and what's left out. For nearly a decade, the Trump-Russia narrative dominated American politics. It split families, triggered investigations, and fueled a media machine that seemed unstoppable. But now, with John Ratcliffe stepping forward and naming names, a very different version of history is emerging. One where intelligence was weaponized, where suspicion was planted, not discovered, and where the people entrusted to protect the truth may have rewritten it. If these claims are ever proven in court or through full congressional oversight, they could shatter trust in the intelligence community for a generation. It wouldn't just be a scandal, it would be a political reckoning. One that calls into question the legitimacy of years of headlines, hearings, and even elections. And for everyday Americans, left, right, or independent, it begs a painful question. How many of our beliefs were built on manufactured evidence? As we head into a new era of political realignment, digital censorship, and rising distrust in legacy institutions, this story, still unfolding, could become the lens through which we understand everything that came after 2016. Ratcliffe's claim isn't just a headline. It's a warning shot. Because if truth can be engineered, then democracy isn't just fragile, it's programmable.